ended up recovering the final body from the rubble of the 58-year-old woman. Well, the public did not react kindly to this information. Many people felt like they were lied to, like there was some weird scam that everyone was pulling.
Hey, it could have been like a morale booster or something like that that the news was doing.
Right. Well, they also thought that it could be a distraction from the many buildings that fell due to improper construction or code violations.
Oh.
Because, like I said, the city had been hit before with a major earthquake, and there were supposed to be a lot of policies and things put in place to make sure that things like a school wouldn't collapse or a church. But in order to distract people from that anger, they created this little girl. But that was not the case, because there was not one official that came forward and said anything about a little girl. Not one. Instead, it was dozens of just regular volunteers, dozens of people. I mean, like I said, people crying and sobbing, saying that they touched her hand, that they talked to her. So, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, I want to know.
Well, psychologists and sociologists have studied this phenomenon a lot. It is reported to be the largest case of mass hysteria.
Weird.
Of everybody just kind of going along with, like, telephone.
Yeah.
Like I said, when the earthquake hit, it was just chaos and everyday citizens became first responders. And it took a long time to get things organized and get, like, a chain of command formed.
Yeah.
So by day 2, all of the first responders, everyday normal people, were all exhausted, hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, had been digging through this rubble for 24 hours. And they think that the thermal scan that initially was the report of the little girl was a large spot of blood and not a person.
Oh.
Because the thermal scan was only seen once and then never again.
Gotcha.
So the blood cooled off.
Yeah.
And that's what that was. They also think that the hand that many people claim to see was the hand of the 58-year-old woman who was still stuck in the debris. There was also a military search dog on site named Frida. And they think that overhearing people saying Frida.
Come here, Frida.
Yeah, was something that latched on to people. Or people latched onto, I guess.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the rest of it, like I said, was a terrible case of telephone and also people just wanting their 15 minutes of fame on live TV. I mean, I know that sounds shitty because they're out there doing noble work, but, you know, even still, you want to be the person that gives people hope. The person that gets live on TV and says, I touched her. Like, I talked to her. She's in good spirits. She's got good vitals. And then someone overhears you saying that, and they kind of build on that.
Yeah.
I touched her. She said her name was Frida. She had good vitals. She's really excited to be getting out. You know, people just expand.
Right.
Well, in the aftermath of the earthquake, Monica Garcia Viejas, which was the former director and owner of the Enrique Rebsamen Primary School, was charged with culpable homicide. But it was because she illegally built those apartments on top of the school. She went on the run for about a year and was eventually caught and sentenced to 31 years and ordered to pay $18,000 to the family of each victim, which is not enough. I mean, there's no amount of money that's enough, but $18,000?
Yeah.
So, like I said, since I decided to do a tip or advice or I don't even know what the fuck you would call it at the end of my stories, I Googled what to do in case of an earthquake.
All right.
According to the CDC, you drop, cover, and hold on. So it's like stop, drop, and roll, but for an earthquake. Drop, cover, and hold on. So you drop to your hands and knees, cover your head and neck, and hold on until the shaking stops. Do not stand in a doorway.
Okay.
And I feel like we've been told to stand in a fucking doorway.
Was that for earthquakes or tornadoes?
I don't know, but do you remember being a little kid and they'd put you underneath your desk? With a book over your head? I mean, I guess that's all they could do, but what the fuck was I gonna do?
Oh, nothing.
And like for a tornado, we just go out and line the halls.
Yeah.
It's weird. Rooms in the middle of the house or buildings are better than exterior ones and stay away from windows.
Yeah.
So kind of the same thing with a tornado. If you're near a beach and an earthquake lasts longer than 20 seconds, move at least 2 miles inland.
Oh, wow.
For a tsunami.
Yeah. 2 miles is pretty far.
I mean, get going.
Start hoofing it.
Have you ever been in an earthquake?
Uh-uh.
One hit Oklahoma when I was in the 3rd grade, but it was a small one, I think, because of fracking.
Yeah.
But I slept through it. My mom woke up and said that everything was falling off the walls and shit, and I slept right through it. Of course, I went to school the next day and was like, yeah, that was crazy. Man. Everything was nuts. But no, I slept right through it. Okay, my next story is the story of Christopher Lee Kunn. This one's a spoopy one.
Spoopy.
My sources are the Men's Journal and a TikToker named SimplyJoy00. But I fact-checked. He was saying real shit. In July of 2015, 30-year-old Christopher went out on his boat with his wife, 2 small children, and his best friend, Robert Blake.
Another 2 first-namer.
They all hop in the boat and set off in the water near St. Lucie, Florida. They grab scuba gear, and their whole plan is to drive around slowly and look down in the water to see piles of rocks.
Okay.
Apparently, if there are piles of rocks, there's going to be lobster down there. And they have scuba gear. They're going to dive down and get as many lobsters as they can. These guys grew up together, and apparently they've been doing this. They lived in Florida. They've been doing this their whole lives.
Oh, that's their thing.
Which is pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's dope. Oh, you want lobster for dinner? Hold on, I got this.
Is lobster overrated?
I would say, yeah, probably. It's just a big old shrimp.
Yeah.
It's just a giant shrimp that feels a little bit rubberier and a lot fishier tasting to me.
I think the last time I had lobster was when we were in the hospital and had one of our kids.
Oh, okay. Well,
and
yes,
hospital
lobster is overrated, Chance. Oh, I forgot they do that. They give you a steak and lobster meal.
Yeah, you get to pick one or the other or something.
No, I think it came with both. It was a surf and turf thing. Yes, I would say that hospital lobster is overrated. Plus, let's be real. It's only just a vessel for garlic butter to get to your mouth. So
that's my favorite.
So they're out there looking at rock piles, trying to find some lobsters, and after an hour or so, they come across a yellow buoy. Not just a little yellow buoy that I'm thinking of, but it's an 8-foot, ocean buoy.
Mm-hmm.
There's conflicting reports at this point, because some people say on this buoy it said stay 100 feet away. And how you would read that...
Unless you're within 100 feet.
Exactly, I don't know. Some people say it said nothing. Regardless, if it did say anything, it just said stay 100 feet away. It didn't have any further details, anything else. But they looked down into the water underneath it, obviously not 100 feet away, and they saw what looked like a large structure. It was a underwater building.
What?
And they're like, we gotta fucking see what this is.
Okay.
They throw on their scuba gear. The second they go underwater, they notice, not only is it a building underwater, there's 3 of them. And they're like, what the fuck?
It's a little complex.
It's Atlantis. These structures were gigantic. In fact, they were only about 10 feet underneath the surface of the water. That's how tall they went. And it looked like the top of it had been almost closed off, like someone had come and put mesh around the top. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Well, Christopher decides he's going to pull the mesh aside and go in through this window area into this building. Because he wants to know.
Sure.
What is this?
Why not? There's no rules at sea.
He goes through the window. Robert follows him. And once inside, it opens up to an area that's about 70 feet by 70 feet. And they just keep looking at each other like, what the fuck is this? They notice down towards the bottom, there's a tunnel that's about 16 feet in diameter.
Okay.
And of course, Christopher's like, I gotta get in that tunnel.
Uh-huh.
He starts going towards the tunnel. Robert's following him, but the second they get near the opening, they feel something pulling them in, a current pulling him into this tunnel. They swim as hard as they can. Robert gets away from the current, and Christopher's sucked inside.
Uh-oh.
So Robert races back to the surface. He's freaking out. He's telling Christopher's wife to call 911. He thinks he just saw his best friend die.
Yeah.
He was sucked into a endless tunnel. He's dead.
Mm-hmm.
She gets on the phone with 911. You can hear Robert in the background saying, I just watched my friend die. But Christopher was not dead. He had been sucked into this tunnel. Like I said, it was 16 feet wide and a quarter-mile long. He said once he hit the entrance, it felt like he had been pulled in over a waterfall, and he started tumbling out of control in complete darkness. All he could do was hold onto his face mask and his regulator to make sure they didn't come off his face.
Yeah.
He could not get his bearings. He was going head over feet over and over again. And he was convinced that whatever was pulling him was inevitably going to kill him. He wasn't sure if it was a pump or a turbine or even just a grate that he would get pinned against.
Uh-huh.
But either way, he was going to
gonna
die. And what Christopher didn't know is that he was being pulled 7 feet per second.
Okay.
That's fast.
Yeah.
Suddenly, he said he saw a small light in the distance, and within a second, he was in an illuminated body of water. He swims to the surface, looks up, and all he sees is a bunch of people with hard hats staring at him.
Oh, shit.
He had unknowingly entered, then been sucked into the cool water intake for St. Lucy's nuclear power plant.
Oh, my God.
The intake system pulls 500,000 gallons of water from the Atlantic per second.
Wow.
And has those structures out front as a border to keep large people and animal or wildlife
stuff out.
And the mesh is to keep smaller things out. But he had just gone right past it. He said he looked up and a plant worker yelled, "How'd you get in here?"
Yeah.
Then he yelled, "You're really lucky because we're getting ready to leave in 5 minutes." And he is disoriented as fuck.
Uh-huh. What if no one was there?
I know. Well, I saw a picture of it and it looks like a pool.
Oh, okay.
So he literally just climbed over to a ladder and got out.
Okay.
I think he would have been fine. But he says he climbed over, got out, and was like, "Can I use somebody's phone?" Grabbed someone's phone and started calling his wife, but she wasn't answering because she was simultaneously calling 911 for the first time because all of that happened within less than 5 minutes. Him getting sucked in.
Yeah.
Going all the way to the end, getting his bearings, talking to someone, getting out of the pool and getting a phone took the same amount of time as Robert to swim all the way back out, get up to the boat, and tell the wife to call 911. All of that happened simultaneously.
Wow.
Luckily, though, she ended up clicking over after the number had called like 3 or 4 times, and he was like, "Hey, it's me, I'm fine." And she was like, "What?" He explained the whole thing. They ended up docking their boat and walking, and he just walked right out of the power plant.
Wow.
After the entire ordeal, Christopher ended up suing the power plant for not having any signs explaining the danger. And the spokesman explained not only did the buoy say to stay 100 feet away, but there was protective mesh covering the entrance that he removed.
Right.
But it also turns out that another diver was sucked into the same intake tunnel in 1989. He also made it through into that pool and was just disoriented and walked out of there. But it had happened before.
Uh-huh. It's probably when they put the buoy up.
Right? I couldn't find if Christopher actually took the plant to court. They probably just settled out of court.
Nuclear power plant could probably afford something like that.
That makes more sense. I also looked to see if there was any changes they made or any signs, and I couldn't find anything there. Then I decided what my tip was going to be at the end of this one. And I couldn't think of one besides, don't fucking scuba dive. We don't belong in the water like that. We don't belong in space, and we don't belong in the... If you can't hold your breath for the amount of time you're underneath the water, you don't deserve to go further than that.
That's how far you should go.
That's about it. Yep. That's your body saying, we're done here. Turn around. There's pressure for a reason. That is warning you, turn around and go back up to the surface. Dark water scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I've never, ever understood the type of people like Christopher and Robert who are like, "What's this large structure underwater? Let's go explore it.
Let's investigate."
Fuck that noise. So those are my stories. They weren't very long ones.